Today is Friday, March 3rd, 2023, and today I'm going to read Isaiah chapter 33, and then I'm going to talk about some vintage outer space BS and talk about how it's nothing new. I think that every time they've done a history reset, I think that they just straight away begin with the outer space BS, controlled opposition, and gatekeeping the truth and hiding knowledge. And they just begin it. Each new reset, they just start off saying, oh, well, people way long ago believed that the earth was flat, but for thousands of years we've known that it's a ball. The same BS that they spout today, I think they've always been saying, oh, well, the ancient Greeks already proved it, so don't you worry about that thing. I think that they've always been doing that, and they start straight away every reset with pushing the BS. And I mean, that's a big topic that might be interesting, and it gets into just like the MO of these people. If they have the ability to do history resets and rewrite history and stuff, why even give us the Bible? Why don't they just completely eliminate the Bible and try to hide it from us? That's a good question. But I think that it has answers, and maybe I'll talk about it here, or maybe I'll forget. Who knows? But you can ask in the comments if you're curious what I think. Anyways, I'm going to read this, and then we'll get into I found a book, an old book, and I thought it would be interesting, and it ended up being interesting for another reason. Okay, Isaiah chapter 33. Woe to thee that spoilest, and thou wast not spoiled. So they're talking about spoiling, like spoils of war there. People that got spoils of war, but that didn't happen to them. And dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. So I don't really like to say the K word, the karma word, but there certainly is an aspect of what people call karma does exist in the Bible. Evil undoes evil. And I don't think that you need to give it a name or some mysticism. It's just that God's will is perfect, and God has told us through his word that evil undoes evil, and that those who take the sword shall perish by the sword, and those who dig pits are going to fall in their own pit. So I just think of it as God's nature. It's one of God's will that evil undoes itself. I don't think you have to give it a name and ascribe various mysticisms to it. That's like pretending like it's an entity. Karma is not an entity. It's just humans taking something that God does and building their own mysticism about it. That's my opinion. Okay, continuing on. O Lord, be gracious unto us. We have waited for thee. Be thou their arm every morning, our salvation also in the time of trouble. At the noise of the tumult the people fled. At the lifting up of thyself the nations were scattered. And your spoil shall be gathered like the gathering of the caterpillar. As the running to and fro of locusts shall he run upon them. I like the imagery of the caterpillar. I wonder if he's going for that inchworm imagery. You know how caterpillars, they scrunch their body together to move and then unscrunch it. So it's like how the two far ends of a caterpillar are brought together when it moves. I think that's the imagery he's going for there, which I think is very beautiful. The Lord is exalted, for he dwelleth on high. He hath filled Zion with judgment and righteousness. And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. Behold, their valiant ones shall cry without. The ambassadors of peace shall weep bitterly. The highways lie waste, the wayfaring man seizeth. He hath broken the covenant, he hath despised the cities, he regardeth no man. The earth mourneth and languisheth. Lebanon is ashamed and hewn down. So Lebanon is absolutely a place that used to have enormous trees that would pale anything today in comparison. You know all the conspiracies out there about in the past there used to be just enormous trees? Huge. Lebanon is definitely where that happened. The Bible makes it abundantly clear that Lebanon was a location of unmatched giant trees. And that's why it's brought up constantly. Whenever Lebanon gets brought up, they talk about the trees. There's no separation between Lebanon and the trees of Lebanon. It's like the same thing. Sharon is like a wilderness, and Bashan and Carmel shake off their fruits. Now will I rise, saith the Lord. Now will I be exalted. Now will I lift up myself. Ye shall conceive chaff, ye shall bring forth stubble, your breath as fire shall devour you. And the people shall be as the burnings of lime, as thorns cut up shall they be burned in the fire. Hear ye that are far off what I have done, and ye that are near acknowledge my might. The sinners in Zion are afraid, fearfulness hath surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burnings? So Isaiah clearly knew about a lot of things that are mentioned later in the New Testament. Isaiah is such an amazing book of the Old Testament because it shows so clear that the New Testament is a fulfillment of the Old Testament. Just because there's so much in Isaiah. How could Isaiah know about all these things that are going to be mentioned again by Jesus and expanded upon? Like here he's talking about the second cleansing. Earth was already cleansed once with water, and it will be cleansed again with fire. So he knew about that. He that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, he that despiseth the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shutteth his eyes from seeing evil. So that's like a hear no evil, see no evil. That's where that appears to come from. He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His waters shall be sure. But I guess I'll say that going back to verse 15, the whole hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil thing, as they are to do, the Satanists, they like to flip everything upside down. They take that, which I'm guessing here it kind of means like people who turn away from evil stuff and don't look into it and aren't okay with it, I think is what's being talked about at 15. But they kind of flip that idea on its head. And the Satanists, the controllers of this place, they take hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil as a vow of silence. It's the same way, you know how cops, a lot of times they got each other's backs no matter what. They'll turn a blind eye to the evil that other cops. That's how the Bapho Satanist Club works too. The hear no evil, speak no evil club, that's a pact from them that they're going to turn a blind eye to one another's evil doings. It's why you'll know Bapho people in real life that are nice. You'll be like, wow, I can tell that you're kind of an upper level Bapho person, but you're like one of the nice ones. But you'll notice that even the nice ones turn a blind eye to the evils that the other ones do, or they'll downplay it. They'll be like, oh, they're not so bad, or they'll still be friends with them or whatever. Anyways, verse 17. Thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is very far off. Thine heart shall meditate terror. Where is the scribe? Where is the receiver? Where is he that counted the towers? I love that. Where is he that counted the towers? I don't know. I'd love to know. Thou shalt not see a fierce people, a people of a deeper speech than thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that thou canst not understand. Conspiracy-wise, have you guys ever seen the conspiracies about, certain celebrities and people are speaking a secret language on TV, and it sounds like they're mumbling words? There's some really creepy theories out there that on television, people like Ellen DeGeneres and other talk show hosts are actually speaking, sometimes it'll sound like they're speaking a really mumbled version of English. You're like, what are you even trying, why can't you speak? You're a talk show host. Shouldn't you have good speech skills? But it sounds like they're mumbling. But if you look really closely and you listen really closely, it almost sounds like they're speaking a hidden language. That's what this reminded me of, which is interesting. A fierce people, a people of a deeper speech than thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that thou canst not understand. That verse right there is that conspiracy theory of there's like literal snake people on the world stage that speak secret languages in front of others. Okay, continuing on. Look up, Zion, the city of our solemnities. Thine eyes shall see Jerusalem, a quiet habitation, a tabernacle that shall not be taken down. Not one of the stakes thereof shall ever be removed, neither shall any of the cords thereof be broken. But there the glorious Lord will be unto us a place of broad rivers and streams. That gets talked about later in Revelation. Wherein shall go no galley with oars, neither shall gallant ship pass thereby. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king, he will save us. Thy tacklings are loosed, they could not well strengthen their mast, they could not spread the sail. Then is the prey of a great spoil divided, the lame take the prey. And the inhabitant shall not say, I am sick. The people that dwell therein shall be forgiven their iniquity. Amen. So this is the second half of this video, and I'm just going to flip through some pages from, this is just a book I bought on a whim from Forgotten Books. They actually have a ton of cool old textbooks, old whatever, that doesn't get printed anymore. And it probably would be a gold mine to search through old books, and other things that I was looking for were like geology. It'd be really interesting to look at geology textbooks from 100 years ago talking about rocks. Anything really, medical textbooks from 100 years ago, really fascinating. A lot of times you can get PDFs of these things, but I like to have hard copies of things if I'm going to actually study it. And this, I didn't really read much of it because it just started making me upset pretty quickly. And so I'll just get into it. So it was a really old, this is from 1910. And I was interested in it because of just flipping through the beginning and reading some of the stuff at the beginning. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this has some interesting stuff in it. And it did not take long before the book started talking about ball earth stuff, and it talked about it in the most ridiculous ways too. It was so arrogant. It was, I don't have the very first pages of the way that it was talking about ball earth stuff, but it was just so fascinating that it was a religious textbook doing the same BS that you see today, where you'll go in and you'll hear pastors talk about, I mean, thankfully the pastor that at the church that I go to doesn't really talk about outer space stuff, which makes me think, maybe they kind of know something. But anyways, you'll hear certain religious people push outer space stuff and they try to pretend like it glorifies God in some way. And I saw the same BS in this 1910 textbook. They were talking about just the same things that gets pushed on us today in elementary school. Talks, oh, well, the ancient Greeks already blah, blah, blah. I was just shocked to see this in a 1910 religious book so heavily pushing the outer space agenda. Anyways, again, this is from 1910. Now, therefore, hasten all to your appointed work, for the mists of heaven thou shalt collect, with which to cool the outer surface of the reconstructed world. So they were pushing that the ball earth would be lit on fire, and then the surface has to cool again. You must also guide the comet worlds until the end of time, for not a single star must be consumed by these lost wanderers through the realms of space. And when the ends of times has fully come, thou shalt collect the remaining meteors. We will restore their former sulphurous heat, and with them we will overwhelm the devil and his rebellious cohorts and all the sons of men that join them when the battle of Armageddon they try to capture the beloved city of mine elect. Then shall the earth's crust be broken down. And then they try to make references to parts of the Bible, which I find interesting, because nothing about outer space is biblical. I found talking about the meteors, though, was very interesting. The way that people used to approach comets is interesting, and there's a lot of historical accounts of very strange sightings in the skies, some involving comets, and what did they think meteors were? Just a lot of interesting stuff, sulfurous stuff. Fire and brimstone certainly comes down from the heavens at times, and it does get talked about in the end. That's the thing about outer space, and obviously there's really cool stuff going up in the heavens, a very mysterious, and just they sell us some cartoon thing, but in reality there is some weird stuff going on up there, and the truth is out there. It's just not what the standard narrative is. It's not what they teach in schools, but I just find it so fascinating. I know I keep saying this, but I find it so interesting that even way back in 1910, the agenda was so heavily pushed, and from such an arrogant, reading this, they made it seem like there's no question. oh, we've already known for thousands of years since the Greeks that the Earth was a ball, which is ridiculous because the whole Aristophanes whatever shadow experiment relies on the assumption that the Earth is or that the sun is infinitely far away from the Earth, which we know is not true. That's not how optics works. That's not how the sun works. Shadows are going to be different because the sun is local. Anyways, I thought that it's weird. You can always smell some strange things. Like, it'll provide a stepping stone to greater knowledge, a key to wealth. Does that really seem religious? Is that part of religion that it's going to be a key to wealth? I think just stuff like this is always an indication that you're dealing with a snake. Who reading your book is going to be a key to wealth for me? Well, that doesn't make me feel too good. Because money is evil. Okay, this was an interesting introduction. Shows copyrighted 1910. It's a weird devil figure. The printing errors in here too is very strange. I don't know where this came from. Oh, I also found it interesting. November 9th. That's a backwards 9/11. 11/9, 9/11. But, you know, back then they could have even, I don't know, did America do their dates backwards back then? November 9th could have been the 9/11 back then. And it still is in a lot of places. I just want to show you some vintage outer space BS. There's some truth in here for sure. But look at this. By geological investigation, we learn that not more than 30 miles beneath the surface of the Earth is a seething mass of molten lava, real literal fire and brimstone. We all know that. This book was just full of all sorts of, we all know that, it's always been known, oh, stupid people in the past used to believe this, but now we know better because we're all super smart scientific. The book is full of the same BS arrogance that we see today. We all know that. What? Excuse me? When have you ever dug down to 30 miles beneath the surface? That is BS. Even today, they can't go very far down. It starts to get impossible to drill farther, and it does get hotter as you go down, which is interesting. But even the deepest boreholes, it never taps into lava. Nobody has a borehole that taps into lava. Lava is just a type of dirty glass that is man-made and just pumped to the surface. Volcanoes are a hoax. I'm just reading through here to see the interesting stuff. They talk about space, meaning outer space. He will then be able to look at this like outer space sci-fi fantasy being pushed in 1910. At the end of our probationary career, he will then be able to accomplish his original purpose, to seize a system of worlds and set up an opposition, typo, kingdom somewhere in the vast realms of space. So the Bible does talk about outer darkness, and that certain entities will be like their punishment will be to be sent into outer darkness. And maybe that probably is where they get their inspiration for space, just the total emptiness and darkness of space. That's probably what it will be like for those specific entities that are banished to outer darkness forever. But you can see that they just twist it into this outer space idea way back in 1910. $7,000 years. I don't know where they're getting that idea. This was really interesting. They're talking about the gospel and how we know that we're reaching end times because the gospel is reaching the ends of the earth. Electrical power, flying machines. I like how they talk about heathen nations, though. And it's just interesting to look at the old historical events that were common knowledge at the time. The last 100 years, England conquered the Boers. It's just that things like that, like nobody talks about the Boers much anymore. Who barred the way of progress and thus opened the heart of Africa to civilization. The United States took over, in quotation marks, the Philippine Islands, Man, it seems like that kind of stuff's been going on forever. China, with its 400 millions of idol worshippers. The heathen Chinese. This book was actually full of other interesting ye olden times non-politically correct statements, especially against natives. This book was brutal against natives, calling them savages and talking about them murdering people. And I just thought that was interesting to see the times past, how history changes. It's very obvious that history changes and is rewritten constantly. But it's interesting because Chinese people today, I would say China is probably one of the bigger groups of new Christians today. And so I think that that is fulfillment of prophecy. This is talking about the beginning of it, that they're starting. But look at this, though. This is more of like a conquering thing. The armies of the combined Christian nations of the world marched to the capital of China. When did that happen? Somebody who's a history expert will have to tell me about that. Japan's war with Russia will make for Christian civilization. This is, very interesting old book. But it wasn't what I expected. I thought that I was going to get some cool old spiritual stuff, but what I ended up getting was BS from just 100 years ago. So sometimes you don't get what you expect. Here you go. The deepest hole by far, is one on the Kola Peninsula in Russia near whatever, referred to as the Kola Well. It was drilled for research purposes beginning in 1970. Took them 5 years, and they had reached about 7 kilometers. So not very far down. I don't know how far that is in miles. Is that like 5 miles? Less than 5 miles, I feel like. So how in 1910 were they talking about less than 30 miles down there's lava? Prove it. Prove it. That's probably not even what the NASA scientists today say. How far do they say that the lava is today? Who knows? But what do they just said that it stopped spinning, and you can so tell that they've just been BSing their way through this since the beginning. None of it is proof. They didn't have proof back then. They don't have proof now. And they've been doing the same games since the beginning. Well, I hope you enjoyed this slightly different video. God bless everyone.